Today we are building a faux barnwood dining table using off-the-shelf lumber. Starting with the tabletop, I used 2x10s for this project and ripped off that rounded edge using a circular saw and a straight edge for a guide. Just rip off about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch all the way down. You want a nice sharp 90-degree angle when you go to join your boards for the tabletop. Lay out your boards alternating the end grain and draw an arrow to keep it straight. And then make your marks for the dowels using a straight edge. Okay, we're ready to make the holes for the dowels. I made a paper template which helps determine exactly the middle of the board so you know where to make the hole for the dowel. Start with a pilot hole, just a tiny one, and then come back with your fastener or spade bit and make the hole for the dowel. You can see I have a green tape flag on there bit so I know exactly how deep to make the hole. Just keep repeating this process at every mark for all the dowels in all the boards, and once we're ready we start adding glue. So glue into the dowel holes, glue on the dowels, and stick the dowels into the holes, and a generous amount of glue all over the edge of the board. If you have a glue brush, use that, otherwise I just use my finger. Now join the two boards together and then add your clamps to keep everything securely in place flat while drying. I chose to do 2 boards and 2 boards at a time just because of the size and the space issue and clamps, all those kinds of things. Once the tabletop is all glued up, dried, and attached, you're going to trim the ends flush and then to be the exact length that you want. So I set up a straight edge guide and use my circular saw. Be sure you're supporting both the table and the cutoff portion from below. Moving right along to the breadboard ends, so you need a T-square or a very long ruler with a straight edge to mark the dowel placement. So one mark goes on the breadboard side, one mark goes on the tabletop side. Now to mark the holes for the dowels, I use that same paper template both on the edge of the breadboard and on the edge of the boards for the table. And I'm using the same process again to make the holes for the dowels using a spade bit, or if you have fastener, and a tape flag. I use my shop vac to suck out all the sawdust out of the holes. Now I'm making the dowel holes into the breadboard end. So with this side, you want the holes to be loose, except for one. One needs to be tight, the other 3 need to be loose. Now for the gluing, so apply glue both in the hole and on the dowel, and the dowels need to go into the tabletop side. Then on the very one tight joint, you put glue on that dowel and gently hammer the board into place and then clamp everything snug. Once it's in the clamps, you need to add the vertical dowel pins to hold those dowels in position. Once everything's dry, you can take the multi-tool and trim off the excess of those dowel pins so it's a nice flush cut. Now use a belt sander to get off all that excess glue and make your table nice and flat. Moving on to the base portion, you attach the apron to the legs, and I used a 3/4 inch spacer. Clamp that spacer to your apron board on the front side and you'll have a 3/4 inch inset once you attach with the pocket holes. Now I'm attaching the long aprons to the other short end, and I'm using a helper to hold the table because I like to use gravity when attaching pocket holes. Now attach the center supports. They are snug as a bug in there, and use pocket hole screws. Moving on to the cross supports, for the half flap joints you need to mark out exactly where you're going to remove the material. I'm using a 4.5 inch mini circular saw. So starting off, you want to set the depth of the blade correctly, which is about halfway down on this post. That's what I'm doing there. And then just start making small thin cuts, multiple cuts. Then to remove all those little chips, you want to take the multi-tool again and cut under them straight across. Then be sure to do a dry test fit of your joints to make sure they fit, and keep working at the spacing until you get it to fit nice and snug. Once all the half flaps are cut, you're ready to join the cross supports to the legs. For this project, I am using the Simpson Strong Tie Outdoor Accents APA 490 angles. I will link them in the caption below. Then you use a 3.5 inch Outdoor Accent structural screw with the hex head washer. So mark where your angle is going to be attached to the cross support first. Pre-drill the hole for the screw. Then attach the angle to the cross support using the 3.5-inch structural screw and the hex head washer. It all fits together like a glove, so there's no room for error. Then repeat that process for the other side of the support, attaching the angle with the screw and the washer. I chose to clamp the support in position onto the leg because I wanted it to be perfect, and there was a little bit of a torque in my post, so I used the clamps to hold it in position. Again, pre-drilling for the screw and then attaching everything with the screw and the washer. Ready to apply finish, I started with some different paints underneath the stain just to give it that barnwood worn paint look, and then I put stain on top and I mixed a few colors, a little bit of weathered gray, a little bit of summer oak, and a little bit of dark walnut. Once that first coat of stain was dry, I went back with a dry brush technique with a little bit of paint onto the end of a dry brush. And then I sanded again and added a little bit more stain in areas where I thought it needed more stain. Okay, now we are attaching the top to the base. So you want to use these tabletop fasteners. They're shaped like a figure 8, and one portion sits on the apron and one portion sits underneath the tabletop. Here I'm marking the apron side of the figure 8, and I'm going to use a fastener bit which is about the same size, if not a little bigger than the figure 8. Then drill your hole. You want it just deep enough so that the fastener sits flush with the apron. Any deeper and your fastener will be too low. You also want to remove the portion of the apron so that the fastener has the ability to swivel ever so slightly, and with that apron bit there it can't really move, so you just take a utility knife and cut down and out. Take those little bits out. Then attach the fastener to the apron. Make sure your screw is countersunk. For this table I used 8 fasteners, and you can see they have the ability to swivel ever so slightly as the wood contracts and expands with the change of the seasons. Then to finish it off I used 3 coats of clear satin polyacrylic and sanding in between coats, and we are ready to go.